This is part 2 on our discussion of the U.S. Constitution. Quick, let's do a review from last week. Now, remember, this Constitution is a product of Enlightenment thinking. What does that mean? Back up Thomas Jefferson. Back up John Locke. Back up John Calvin. Remember, what does John Calvin say? What is the tulip formula? T, total depravity of man. Why is that an important thing? Total depravity is the key idea. It's a premise, the foundational idea behind our Constitution. I talked about this in church on Sunday from The City of God by St. Augustine. Okay, City of God, remember this book? Okay, and St. Augustine, this is a book that even if you're an atheist, you should read this book. Why is this book important? Well, this book ultimately leads to the Constitution and the Western way of thinking. So John Calvin is influenced by St. Augustine also. So St. Augustine, he's writing in the context of 410 AD. What happened then? Alaric and the Visigoths sacked Rome. Rome had been the eternal city for over 800 years. No pagan had been in Rome. They sacked Rome. Pagan Romans, old-time Romans who believe in, Jupiter and Hera and all the old Greco-Roman gods said the reason that Rome fell is because we abandoned the ancient gods and we believe the new gods of Christianity. Remember the Battle of Milvian Bridge, Maxentius against Constantine, in hoc signu vinces, in this sign conquer, that's 312 AD. By 313 AD, Edict of Milan, Christianity is declared a licit religion, a legal religion. Then 410, Alaric and the Visigoths sack Rome. And for the Romans, this would be like a traumatic event. Imagine if Chicago, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. and New York were all invaded and collapsed at the same time. Like, what would you think? Other than, it's a great idea? No, you wouldn't think that, right? In fact, that's one of the reasons why the Visigoths were welcomed as liberators, because they actually offered lower taxes than the current regime. So you always remember that. If people think the country is not worth fighting for, then the country's going to fall, right? Or they'll welcome the invaders as liberators, and the old-time people, it's too late, your country's going to collapse. So it's a very important thing. If people lose confidence in their government, it will fall, right? So anyway, and what is this about? Remember, draw the line here, okay? City of man, city of God. City of God is word and sacrament. The church is in charge of spiritual things, the soul. The city of man is in charge of politics and government. Over here, remember, what are the 4 types of government? This is Plato, Aristotle, the cycle. Monarchy, republic, democracy, anarchy. We need law and order. The man on the white horse rides in, Napoleon saves the day, and you're back up to the top of the list again. Back to monarchy. So this is a very useful political cycle. Okay? So, in the American Revolution, in Europe, what is the old world order?
Monarchy.
Monarchy. Okay? So over here, they're monarchy. Okay? And we are trying to found a republic. What's the difference? In a monarchy, you are a subject of the king. In a republic, you are a citizen. Is that an important concept? Yeah. Remember in the American Revolution, James Otis came up with a great slogan, taxation without representation is tyranny. Okay, it's like a bumper sticker. Very excellent, outstanding way of summarizing what they're all fighting for. What's the opposite of tyranny? Liberty. Okay, libertas. Liberty is the opposite of tyranny. Now, why did the people in New England and the 13 colonies believe that they were being abused by the British? Because in the British system, the king is the monarch, you are the subject. Who represents you? Why? Because he's like your father, and monarchs are supposed to treat their subjects as children. So they're supposed to lovingly care for you and protect you, national defense, all that stuff. So they use the father-children analysis for that, okay? And if you said to a monarchist from England, a Tory, if you said, no taxation without representation, what would they say? Their response would be, what's your problem? Because you are represented. Who represents you? The king looks out for your interests. So they wouldn't, but in a republic, right? So why do we get all agitated? Because we believe that in a republic, a citizen
has rights.
Yeah, has rights. Okay? In this old-fashioned regime, the monarchy regime, your rights are given to you by the king. Okay? So it's important to know what came before. So again, on the back of a dollar bill, the pyramid, the all-seeing eye, right, the pyramid, at the bottom it says, Novus Ordo Seclorum, New Order of the Ages. What's that? It's a republic, not a monarchy. Okay? Now in a City of God stuff over here, okay, who's in charge of your government? The king, and you're a subject. Okay? Now, so then, who does politics in a monarchy? Aristocratic people.
Not the people.
Children don't think about it. It's not your concern. There's nothing you can do about it anyway. So it's something that the barons, lords, dukes, the aristocrats, and the king, that's where politics functions up here. And you just worry about, you go to church and you do what you're supposed to do, dig your hole, be a serf or something. Okay? So this is a radical new way of thinking here. Okay? It's a brand new way of thinking about things. Okay? And so James, all right, so then last week we talked about how this type of thinking is Enlightenment thinking. What's the Enlightenment? Think of the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648. What's the 30 Years' War? 1/3 to 1/2 of the population of German-speaking territories was killed in a war between the Catholic Habsburgs and the Protestants in the north, Lutherans. Okay? 1/3 to 1/2 of the German population. And it took them 200 years to recover. Robert, this week we sang the hymn, Now Thank We Now All Our God. Okay? That's a hymn that came out of the 30 Years' War. A guy named Pastor Rinkart. His town was destroyed like 2 or 3 times. His whole congregation was killed. And when the war was over, he wrote that beautiful hymn. And when World War I ended, in the trenches, the German trenches, they sang that song. Yeah, isn't that something? So the product of the 30 Years' War is we're not going to fight about religion anymore. Or in our country, we have religious tolerance, don't we? Yeah, why? Well, because we don't want to have the 30 Years' War again. So that means if you don't want to fight about religion, then you have to figure out a way to live with each other. That's where religious tolerance comes in. So that's an Enlightenment idea. We're not going to fight about, so the Enlightenment breaks after the 30 Years' War. Okay, so Enlightenment starts coming in. We're going to start using reason, right? Start thinking things through, okay? So this is a product of reason, of the Enlightenment type thinking. Okay, so then let's go to John Calvin. John Calvin believes in the total depravity of man. What's the opposite of John Calvin? Jean-Jacques Rousseau, okay? So memorize these names. Jean-Jacques Rousseau and John Calvin. You can put them next to each other. They both lived in Geneva, which is interesting, okay? Calvin comes first. He's a second-generation Protestant reformer. He's a disciple or student of Martin Luther. Martin Luther believes in single predestination. John Calvin believes in double predestination. But John Calvin's big thing is the sovereignty of God. Who rules? God rules, right? And the total depravity of man. That's a killer concept. So, do we believe in that? Yeah, but we just don't obsess about it as much as the Calvinists do. Calvinists are like hardcore in this area, okay? So we say things like, if we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. We are claiming the total depravity of man concept. Now, stop. With Calvinism, what are the 4 types of government again over here? Monarchy, what? Republic, democracy, anarchy. Okay? Is Calvin an anarchist? No. Because if you get rid of the government, and if you have total depravity of man, basically you're going to have a war of all against all, and the people with the most weapons are going to be the lords over everyone else. So you can't have anarchy, right? How about democracy? Demos kratos, so it means rule of the people. Okay. The founders of our country, like John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, across the board, hated and despised democracy. Why? Because they read Plato and Aristotle. Okay? And so Plato and Aristotle, they hate democracy. Why do Plato and Aristotle hate democracy?
It didn't work.
Why?
Because the people voted for themselves.
Well, have you heard of Socrates before?
Yeah.
Who is he?
He drank the
Hemlock. Why?
Gained freedom.
He had students from the CIA? No, that's not why. No. He was sentenced to death by Athens, a jury in Athens, and they voted to kill him. And who's Socrates? The wisest man who ever lived, is a victim of democracy.
Why did they vote to kill him?
He was corrupting the youth of Athens by teaching them how to ask embarrassing questions to important political people.
So Thomas
So like
Jefferson
if you walk up
was
to a
against
presidential
that?
candidate and ask them an embarrassing question, then they'll kill you. So Socrates was teaching his students to cause the powers that be to lose face. So they threw him under the bus. So we like Socrates and we like Jesus, okay? So there's some interesting parallels between the two there. So democracy killed Socrates, the wisest man who ever lived. Jefferson, people like that hold Socrates in high regard. And they also like Plato and Aristotle, okay? So democracy doesn't work, and this is not a democracy, it's a republic, right? And again, my head explodes every time I see these idiots on TV from both parties, Republicans and Democrats. They're always saying, it's a democracy. No, it isn't. We don't have a democracy, we have a republic, right? And our Constitution is set up as a republic. And I'll talk about that, as this thing goes on, okay? It's extremely important to know the distinction.
How about the democracy within a republic?
Well, that means that we have elections every 2, 4, and 6 years. But in a pure democracy, you wouldn't have elections at all. Everyone would have their iPhone, and you would say, shall we have a $5 trillion corona relief package? All in favor, vote yes or no. So we don't vote on every single issue that comes up, because we have representatives who make the decisions on our behalf. And if we don't like their decisions, what do we do with them?
Vote them out.
We vote them out, right? So rotation in office is a very important thing. So this is not, and why? Because the founders were worried about the passions and emotions of people. Do people do wacky things?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people do crazy things, right? People are not, so you have to have something to temper the emotions of the mobs. Right? People get all emotional about something or other,
So
they're dangerous when they get that way.
We're a republic, but even that's not working.
Well, all we know from reading history that there's no perfect form of government except what? Yeah, Jesus is going to come again and sit on the throne and rule the world in peace and harmony. So until Christ, that's the only perfect government that there is. In the meantime, all of these forms of government have strengths and weaknesses. What's good about having a monarchy?
It takes the responsibility.
You don't have to watch election commercials and see lying politicians on TV,
Right.
Every 2 years. And whoever loses this next presidential election is going to start campaigning the next day for the 2024 election. It's like, give it a break. You know what I mean? So it's a perpetual, campaign, So that's one of the, but if a king, the king lives for what Louis the 14th lived, I think he ruled for 74 years. Well, you can kind of plan ahead that way. You know what I mean? It's like if there's Queen Elizabeth II, how long has she's been queen for 75 years or something? So if they had a pure monarchy there, they have a constitutional monarchy in England now, but you don't have to worry about who's going to be the leader.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of there's security there, right? Okay.
No, we need to talk later on sometime about the Republic.
Yeah,
What I understand, the Republic of America
yes,
is different than the Republic in Europe.
yes. Most,
And I forgot why or what.
no, the United States has a unique constitution,
Right.
okay? And other countries have parliamentary systems, okay? And what's a parliamentary system? If we had a parliamentary system, the House of Representatives would be the big body, that's the parliament. Nancy Pelosi would be the prime minister. And you might have a president, but the president would do things like cut ribbons,
Oh, yeah.
open the Olympic Games. They have no power, they're just sort of a, kind of a figurehead,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's what it
And,
is.
and what do you do in a parliament? If you have a vote of confidence. So if you think Nancy Pelosi, the prime minister, is not doing a good job, you call an election like a month from now, and whoever gets the most, whatever party gets the most candidate, or gets the most parliamentary members, they get to decide who the prime minister is, right? So if the Republicans had a majority in the Congress, then they could pick the prime minister. If the Democrats have the majority, and with parliamentary systems, you have multi-party systems. So in Israel, they have like maybe 25 or 30 different parties. Like we have a Green Party, the Working Families Party, the Libertarian Party, the Conservative Party in New York, the Republican Party. So you have to make a coalition. So the Republicans and the Conservatives and Libertarians might get together and make a coalition. The Green Party, the Working Families Party, the Democrats would have another coalition, and whoever has the most votes gets to be the prime minister. So our parliamentary system is more democratic. So that's why these people are always talking about our democracy, because if they had their way, this would be a parliamentary system. They don't like the Constitution, okay? And so, might as well talk about that right now, okay? What's one of the key features of our Constitution? 3 branches of government. Name the 3 branches of government: executive branch, judicial branch, and legislative branch. Why do we have 3 branches of government?
To balance us.
Checks and balances. Yeah, but isn't that inefficient? Someone who believes in government power would say our Constitution is horse and buggy days. It's old-fashioned. 18th century, it might have worked in the 18th century, but it's 2020. We have to change our way of thinking now. The Constitution is very, very inefficient now. We can't have this, because you have to, again, what do? All tax bills have to originate in the House of Representatives, right? The people. Then it has to go to the Senate. Then it has to be signed by the President. And then it becomes law. And if the law is unconstitutional, it can be taken to the Supreme Court, and they can rule the law unconstitutional. That's really inefficient. So people like Woodrow Wilson, why do you want to know about Woodrow Wilson? I don't. He's boring. Okay. You want to know about Woodrow Wilson? He's probably the most important person of the 20th century when it comes to American politics. Why is that? FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, who was elected when? 32, 36, 40, and 44. He is a disciple and a student of Woodrow Wilson. Franklin Roosevelt, nice guy. He liked to drink martinis. He wasn't a deep thinker. He got like C's in economics at Harvard. He was not a deep thinker, right? But he liked being president. And he's a disciple of Woodrow Wilson, who did the deep thinking, okay? And in 1888, Woodrow Wilson got a PhD from Johns Hopkins University. It's one of the first in the United States. In the 19th century, if you want a PhD, where do you go? Germany. Yeah, Germany is the one that invented the Doctor of Philosophy degree. So many people who taught at Harvard in the late 19th century went to Germany and got PhDs and then came back here again and taught. So Johns Hopkins started a PhD program in like 1885, something like that. Woodrow Wilson is one of the first PhDs in America from an American institution, Johns Hopkins University. He wrote a dissertation called Congressional Government, okay? And Woodrow Wilson had this thing. Every club he joined, every organization he joined, he always wanted to rewrite the constitutions for the group. So if he's in a fraternity, or he's president of Princeton, he wants to reorganize and rewrite the Constitution. He has the same impulse. He wants to rewrite the Constitution, right? So he thinks he's James Madison or something. Well, Woodrow Wilson's big vision is what? This Constitution is old-fashioned. It's outmoded. It's out of date. It's horse and buggy days. They use this word all the time. We're in the age of the automobile, right? This is too inefficient. We want efficient, good government. Goo-goos, good government, okay? So he calls for a parliamentary system, okay? And what does that mean? You get rid of the Supreme Court. You minimize the Supreme Court. You amplify the House of Representatives. You pass things like well, let's do this. Name 3 things that happened in 1913. The Federal Reserve Act, okay? So that means the federal government has a central bank where they can increase they control the money supply, technocrats, okay? So it's Woodrow Wilson thinking. The second thing they passed is the 16th Amendment, which is what? You don't know that one? The 16th Amendment?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. But you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you.
Well, it's the one after the 15th.
There you go. No, the 16th Amendment is the amendment that gives the federal government the right to levy a federal income tax. The income tax was unconstitutional. They tried it during the Civil War. It was ruled unconstitutional. They tried it again in the 1890s, unconstitutional. So 1913, they have a constitutional amendment, the 16th Amendment, and what's the 17th Amendment? Direct election of senators. So the question is, what did we have before the 17th Amendment?
The legislatures of the state used to select the representatives.
Very important. So rather than having people vote for Chuck Schumer or something, right? Running, you had the primary run. Rather than having people voting, why did they do that? Because it's not a democracy, it's a republic. It's part of the checks and balances idea. In England, they have the Parliament, right? The House of Commons, and then they have the House of Lords. The House of Commons is the voice of the people. That's supposed to be like the House of Representatives. Every 2 years they have an election. So the House of Representatives is supposed to have their pulse on the way common Americans think, okay? The Senate is supposed to be like the House of Lords, where you deliberate. It's statesmen. You have politicians in the House and you have statesmen in the Senate. So progressives, Woodrow Wilson people, they don't like the Senate being picked by the state legislatures, because that's a barrier between what the people want and what it limits the power of the government. So they want to get rid of that. So now what do we have? We have politicians in the House and we have politicians in the Senate. Okay, everybody wants to know why everything is politics all the time. Well, you have Democrats and Republicans in the Senate, and they're all running for election all the time, trying to get money, So in other words, we tampered with the original system. Okay? And related to this, what's the Electoral College?
It's a different thing.
Shouldn't we get rid of the Electoral College? Why not?
The balance
the-
of power between
Well, no, before you tell me you're against it, tell me what it is.
Okay. What it is, it's based upon the number of representatives you have
Stop.
in each state.
How do you know how many representatives you get?
Depends on population.
It's the population.
What's the population?
No, per state.
What's the population?
What do you mean, the percentage?
Every 10 years, what do we do?
Oh,
The census.
So 2020 is the census, so everybody's hot and bothered now. Make sure you fill out a census. Fill out the census. It's like you can't get away from it, right? Because the more people you get, then that means more representatives you get for your state. Chances are New York State's going to lose a couple of congressmen because people are leaving the state and moving to Texas and Florida and South Carolina. So they're going to gain population, which means we're going to lose a couple of congressmen and they're going to gain a couple. So Rhode Island is easy. Let's do that because that's a small state. Rhode Island has 3 electoral college votes. Why?
Because they have 3 representatives.
Are you sure?
They have 2 senators and 1 congressman.
Okay, that's what you do. It's the 2 senators plus the congressman. So if your state, like New York, we have 2 senators, and I'm not sure how many congressmen we have.
20, 24.
All right, suppose we have 24. If we have 24 congressmen plus 2 senators, we have 26 electoral college votes. See how that works? Okay? And so that being said, then what's the purpose of the electoral college?
To prevent the large population centers in a democracy for making the call of who wins an election.
Yeah, because it's a what? It's a republic, not a democracy. See how that works?
So the big push right now to get rid of the electoral college will mean that whoever carries any big city. is gonna
Yeah,
win the
New
election.
York, Chicago, Los Angeles.
So it
yeah.
does away with the influence of Wyoming, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Carolina.
Well, basically, all the presidents and all the money would go into buying ad time in New York and Los Angeles, and no one would ever go to the Midwest ever, right? So that works. So the Electoral College is, when people talk about the Electoral College, well, that is an example of why it's a republic. See
It
that?
balances the power of the states.
Why? Checks and balances. See, checks and balances is the key. That's the key thought here. Okay. Why do you want checks and balances? Again,
To be fair.
you want checks and balances because of John Calvin and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Jean-Jacques Rousseau believes that man is inherently good. Okay. So then go ahead and ask me, why do we have crime in Poughkeepsie or whatever? Why do we have crime?
Because man is not inherently good.
Well, you would say that because you're obnoxious and you read the Bible.
Thank you.
Well, what would a follower of Jean-Jacques Rousseau say about that? He's an atheist, you know. No, what would they say? So why do you have crime, Mr. Rousseau?
It's because of your environment.
Yeah, that's the key thing, okay? So Jean-Jacques Rousseau is an atheist. He thinks that man is inherently good, and we're born free, but everywhere we're in chains. That's one of his famous lines. So he looks at the world, and it's messed up. So why do you have crime? People shooting each other down like dogs in the streets of Troy or something. Why do you have that? Well, their response would be bad environment. So what's the thinking? If you change the environment, you change the man. Okay, in a related concept with Rousseau, he believes that cities are bastions of corruption. They're dirty, they lead to crime, they lead to poverty, all kinds of stuff. So what's the opposite of a city?
Country.
Rural, country, okay? So he believes that nature in the country is good and cities are evil. So what do you want to do about that? What do you do about that? So if cities are producing criminals, what do you do? That's their idea.
Well, that's what they do in the sorties.
Well, like we're in New York State, right? New York State people, you know, the Jean-Jacques Rousseau is a tremendous influence, right? In that, where is Auburn State Prison?
In the country.
Yeah, where is Sing Sing?
In the country.
Up the river, right? So you take the Irish boys, you know, the no good, and you send them up the river to Sing Sing, right? Because the country is good and the cities are evil. So if you can only take the people out, you know, take the Crips and Bloods out of the city and send them up here and then have them hoe potatoes up by Batavia somewhere, that because you change the environment, you're going to change the man. Okay? Who's the disciple of Jean-Jacques Rousseau? Well, a lot of progressive people or people that believe in democracy, whatever. Karl Marx is a disciple of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Okay? And so is Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge from Cambodia. So Phnom Penh had 20 million people. So cities are evil, right? Yes, they are. Cities are evil. So what do you do about that if you want to remake the world? Which is what they want to do. They want to remake the world. French Revolution.
Eliminate the cities.
Well, you take the population of Phnom Penh, right, and you make them go out into the country. And what do you do with people that can't be rehabilitated? They've been corrupted by capitalism, the city.
Get rid of them.
How can you tell if they have to be killed or not?
It's just arbitrary.
People with glasses have to be killed because that means they can read. And their minds have been corrupted. So if you have glasses, you're dead. And who did the killing? 15-year-old boys do the killing. Right? Well, why is that? Because 15-year-old boys make excellent fascists.
Malleable.
Yeah. You know, so the killing field, they killed 2.5 million people in a small country. Cambodia is a small country. 2.5 million people because they were corrupted by the city and capitalism. And if you want to remake the world, you have to reinvent the human race. Okay? So Jean-Jacques Rousseau's ideas are really like Ho Chi Minh. You've heard of him? Ho Chi Minh? right? In 1917, 1918, 1919, where was he? He was in Paris at the Treaty at Versailles, the Versailles Conference that ended World War I. What did he want? Independence for French Indochina. Yeah. And while he was there, he read books on Karl Marx and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He brought the ideas back to Vietnam, and that's why Vietnam is communist. Right? So Jean-Jacques Rousseau's ideas are extremely dangerous, right? And the idea is, man is inherently good, change the environment. Okay? So, do I believe in environmentalism? Yeah, it's good. We are stewards of the earth and we should take care of God's creation. Okay? Very important. But I stop when it becomes a religion. You know, Gaia, Mother Earth, this kind of stuff. And when it becomes like a cult, right? And what's the obsession? The obsession is they don't believe in heaven and hell or afterlife. They think it's all here and now. That's it. There's no afterlife. Therefore, you have to make this world a heaven. Right? So that's why they have a sense of urgency. And in cleaning the environment, if they believe if you change the environment, you change the man. That's a key thing. That's why they obsess about it. Right? You know, and they think that like all social problems could be eradicated by changing the environment. You know, so if you, I don't know, you recycle paper bags or something, you know, or you move people from the city out into the countryside. They have a whole elaborate program because they think that man is inherently good, and the crime and poverty and all social problems result from the problem of a bad environment. So they have to change the environment. They're obsessed with that.
It hasn't worked yet.
Well, you know, why do I read the Bible? Because it's an accurate depiction of the human condition. Mm-hmm. Right? So forget God. If God didn't exist, I would still read the Bible because it's an accurate description of the human condition. Right? We live in a broken and fallen world. Remember, what are the four alienations? You know this. Alienation from God, alienation from each other, alienation from nature, and alienation from yourself. So the world is broken in four ways. Jean-Jacques Rousseau would reject all of those. He'd say there's no God, right? We're alienated from each other because we're inherently good, and our environment taught us to hate each other. So you have to teach kindness, right? And alienation from nature, well, that's why the world is messed up, because the environment is messed up. And alienation from yourself, well, we're alienated because of all the conflicts we have to deal with. We're deep down inside, we're really good people, right? So what does it look like in criminal reform? Okay, if somebody's a criminal, right, you would say to them, okay, so you killed those 5 people and cannibalized them, but we know that you're really a good person. It's because your mother beat you with a coat hanger or something. So you'll be rehabilitated. So they send you off to a correctional institution where they correct bad environment, correctional facility. Okay, they correct the bad behavior, and then you get paroled, and then you get to go out, and then you're completely. It's a therapeutic thing. See, so through new nature, you can you change the environment, and then you can change the because man is deep down inside, he's really a good person. Charles Manson is really a great person, right? So you always want to know about how his family background. He was adopted and passed off his mother. He was an alcoholic or something, and this is why he did what he did. So they always want to know about the environment that the person comes out of, and then they can correct that. Psychology, that kind of thing. Okay? So what would a Calvinist say about that? Total depravity of man.
It's in them. It's innate.
Yeah. They would say, okay, so again, go back to St. Augustine. City of God, city of man. Over here, who's in charge of justice and law and order?
Man.
Yeah, the state is, right? Why is it necessary to have a state or have a government? To restrain evil. Got that? So you have to have police and military and a court system for contracts in order to restrain evil. Because people will try to get things that don't belong to them through fraud and deception. They'll lie and cheat and steal. Or they will break into your house and take your stuff or the Canadians will invade our country and you know, see what I mean? So you have to have some kind of a military, you have to have police, and you have to have contracts, and that's in the Constitution. That's the basic requirement of what a government is for. To do what? Restrain evil. Because of total depravity of man, government is a good thing. Right? We're glad we have government, and we should support the police and the military. Because what are they doing? They are bearing arms so you don't have to.
Right.
Suppose we do anarchism. Anarchy, anarchy, no government. Get rid of the government. Okay? Jean-Jacques Rousseau believes that because man is inherently good, if you abolish the government, then people are going to be good and wonderful and charming, and utopia and loving kisses will break out. Woodstock will break out.
I don't think so.
And we would look at that and go, well, that's very naive. Well, that's their worldview. They believe in Jean-Jacques Rousseau. That's their religion. Right? So very, very important. So our country, we reject the Jean-Jacques Rousseau worldview. What country believes it? The French Revolution is a consequence or the fruit of Jean-Jacques Rousseau's thinking. Right? Bad environment, it's the French monarchy. If you chop off their heads, get rid of the church, because the church is restraining human development. So they chopped off the heads of the first estate are the clergy, the second are the aristocrats, and the third are everyone else. So it's a revolution where they flip it like this, where the people on the bottom come on the top, the people at the top get their heads chopped off. So the church is an evil institution that must be destroyed, and the aristocrats are evil because they are restraining the goodness of human nature. And they begin the world all over again with year 1 in the French Revolution calendar, and they get rid of the 7-day week. Where does the 7-day week come from?
The Bible?
Yeah, God created the heaven and the earth in 6 days, rested on the 7th day, right? Okay? Well, they just made that up. That you can't have that. So they got rid of it and put in a 10-day work week. How did that work out?
Not well.
You know the decimal system? Right, it's based on the same logic. It's all based on tens because you have 10 fingers, so they have a 10-day week. How did that work out? Well, the oxen in the field were like messed up. Their productivity dropped because they're used to the cycle. There's something about a 7-day cycle. You know, it's like embedded in nature, you know? Like the Bible reflects nature and nature reflects God. So it's like, so the 7-day week, there's something about that, right? If you don't believe me, go ahead. Work 7 days, work 10 days, work 15 days in a row and see what happens to you.
Yeah.
If I tried that, I would be like, I'd get like a migraine, I'd be sick. I'd be forced to have my Sabbath day rest in bed to get rid of the headache or the reaction that I would get from doing that.
Yeah.
So the idea of work 6 days, rest on the 7th day, there's something to that. There's something to that. A long time ago, they did a psychology class. You know, they take the undergraduates, you know, they're worthless anyway. So you make them stay in a room that's completely dark. And you put food on a tray and slide it under the door. And you clock how long, what is their circadian rhythm, you know? So your circadian rhythm is 25 hours and 15 minutes, not 24 hours. So what happens is, Monday, Tuesday, you find by the time you get to Friday, you're tired because your rhythm is out of whack. And so the Sabbath day rest idea recalibrates the 7th day, and then you're refreshed on Monday to go back to work again. Right? So these kids, they let them sleep 25, you know, let them sleep whenever they wanted to naturally, and they were all like messed up after a couple of weeks of that. Because their rhythm is not, you know, so there's something about the sun goes up, the sun goes down, you have the rhythm, it's natural, you know. Well, the Bible reflects that natural cycle. Okay? But the French Revolution, so they tried that for a couple of years, and the economy was so messed up by it that they went back to the 7-day week. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So even the French Revolution, even communists, like in the Soviet Union, they still have a 7-day week. China has a 7-day week. They're communists. I mean, they don't, you know. Okay? So Jean-Jacques Rousseau, he believes man is inherently good. Okay, so our Constitution is based on the Calvinist idea of total depravity of man and the necessity of government. You have to have a state. And what are the 3 legitimate functions of the state? It's police, military, strict enforcement of contracts. That's some kind of a court system. You want me to explain that one for a minute? I go to Home Depot. I buy 300 2x4s, and I say, I don't have my truck, can you deliver them? We'll deliver them, no problem. So here's the cash, $500. I give them the money. Then I go home, and when are you going to deliver? Oh, Tuesday we'll deliver them. Well, guess what? Tuesday comes, no 2x4s. Wednesday, Thursday, no 2. I call them up, where are my 2x4s? Oh, we decided to keep your money and the 2x4s. So what do you do about it? No. You go over to Home Depot, shoot the manager, and burn down the building. Isn't that what you do? Because you have to have justice, don't you? I've been disrespected by Home Depot.
Sounds good to me.
No, so yeah, that would be the Jersey solution. But we're not in New Jersey, we're in New York, we're civilized here. So what do? Here's what you do. You go to small claims court, and you go in front of the judge, strictly enforcement contracts, and the judge will say, you have a receipt? Yeah, here it is. Okay, that's a contract. According to this contract, Home Depot manager, you said you were going to deliver 300 2x4s on Tuesday, and you didn't show up, so you have a choice. Give the man his 2x4s, or give the man his money. You can't keep both. So, guess what? The Home Depot guy might grumble a little bit, and he'll give you your money back, or he'll deliver the 2x4s. Notice, no force or violence is required, because the courts arbitrate disputes. So that's a legitimate function of the state. Again, without having a court system, it would be, there are arbitration people that try to negotiate things. That's fine. If that works, that's fine. But if push comes to shove, you have to go to court to settle these things, and it's settled peacefully, right? Do we have a problem? Yeah, the police pulled me over, and I don't like police, so I fight with the policeman. And the policeman ends up shooting Robert because he's in the car or something. And is that what you do? Here's what you do. If you get pulled over, you say to the policeman, yes, sir, no, sir, here's my ID, all right? Can I do anything to help you? That's what you do. You don't resist or fight the policeman, right? So, yeah, but the policeman is a racist or a bigot. He doesn't like Norwegian American people, right? I'm a victim of discrimination. What do you do about it? Fight him right there on the street, right on the curb, right? What do you do about it?
You don't egg him on, you still do what he asks.
Yeah, you let him arrest you, you go to court, then you tell the judge, that guy made insulting remarks about my Viking heritage. Right? Now so you settle the dispute in the court system, not in the streets fighting. Right? So that's a very important thing, because again, we believe in the rule of law. The rule of law. Okay? And that's what the city of man is for. This is St. Augustine stuff. Okay? Again, you have a choice. You can do it the rule of law way, or you can do it fight in the streets way. And if you fight in the streets, the people that are the strongest with the best weapons are going to win the argument. Is there a better way? A more civilized way is you go to court and you argue your case out verbally and you settle it peacefully. See, peaceful resolution of conflict. That's what Christians are, right? We believe in peaceful resolution of conflict. Okay? So city of man, very important. So John Calvin, his whole worldview is based on the idea of government is necessary to restrain evil. Stop. What are the four forms of government again? Monarchy, republic, stop. In a monarchy, right? If you believe in total depravity of man, which is a Calvinist point of view, who is included under man?
The monarch.
Yeah. Monarchs in Europe taught the idea of the divine right of kings. What does that divine right of kings mean?
That they're better than you?
No. Remember, they're always coming up to Jesus saying, where do you get the authority to do this? So a king would say, God chose me and anointed me to be the king. I'm God's representative on earth. The voice of the king is the voice of God. That's why you bow when God comes in the room. See? So if you believe in total depravity of man applied to the realm of politics is an anti-monarchist statement. Because total depravity includes King George III. They're not special because they happen to be, you know, the king or the queen or the emperor. There's no divine right of kings in a republic. Why? We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. That doesn't say, except for monarchs who are superior to us. So a republic idea is an anti-monarchy idea. In our Constitution, it prohibits the federal government from giving out royal titles. So you can't say, you know, Jared Kushner's a great guy, so I want Congress to make him the Prince of New York. No, we don't have monarchy titles, right? So you can't say the Kennedys are a royal family and they're all like, you know, princes and princesses and they can do whatever they want. You know? No, we don't have that because we have a republic. No monarchy, okay? Right? No monarchy in a republic. It's against the law. It's against our Constitution for the government to give out royal titles. And they were so concerned about that why is George Washington called the father of our country?
Because he built his term and left.
Even better. Does he have any children?
No.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? That's one of the reasons why people unanimously picked him to be the president. Because in the history of the human race, the general who wins the revolution or wins the war becomes the king, and then his son becomes the next king, and next thing you know, you have a dynasty. That's the way history rolls, up until 1776. And in our republic, we picked George Washington, who was sterile. He had smallpox when he was in Barbados with his brother Lawrence, and he was rendered sterile, no children. So as a result, he served his 2 4-year terms and went back to Mount Vernon. Cincinnatus returns to the plow, to the Roman ideal, right? And so that's why he's a remarkable man. You know, they wanted to make him king, you know, and he refused, and which is an amazing thing, because our republic, again, Benjamin Franklin is coming out of the Constitutional Convention, and they said to him, Dr. Franklin, what type of government have you given us? And he says, a republic, sir, if you can keep it.
Wow.
See, a republic, all these forms of government they're fluid, right? We know from reading Plato and Aristotle that the next step for us is going to be democracy, and then democracy leads to anarchy. Because when people figure out you can elect so-and-so and they'll give you free money, well, that's going to destroy the democracy. You end up with, you know, people grabbing and seizing things, and you get rid of the police, and you end up with wars and people fighting in the streets, that kind of stuff. So anarchy is the fruit of a democracy. So we have to maintain eternal vigilance to maintain our republic if we want to keep it that way. See what I mean? And it's unstable. You have to defend what you think is the right idea. That's why it's good for us to read the Constitution. Okay? Because this is like the rules of the republic, right?
But as citizens of the country, we're still so limited in what we can do.
Why are we limited? Because we're lazy.
No, because we're scared.
Well, the education is the key. You need to like read. How many people do you know have read the Constitution? It's not that big of a book. You know, my students get all excited. I go, okay, here's the book for the class. Here's the book. Oh, we like Dr. Isaacs. He's just nice. Yeah, it's only a few pages. What is this, like 50 pages?
Yeah, but when I tried to read it this week, it was difficult to understand.
Well, it was written for normal people, believe it or not. No, it was. But it goes to show you. But it goes to show you how far our country has fallen. It was like the Federalist Papers are written for farmers who live in upstate New York. Try read the Federalist Papers.
All right.
I've got like 4 masters and 4 doctorates, and I sit down with it, and it's really hard read. It was written for normal farmers in upstate New York. And our education system has gone so far where I complain about this all the time. My Adobe kids, they're 18, 19 years old. I give them, here, read this. You know, I'll give them this, let's say. Here, just read that lesson right there. Tell me what it means. They can't read something and then tell you what it means. They don't have that. They don't have that skill set. They have no comprehension when it comes to like interpreting documents. And it makes it very difficult if you're trying to, you know, I'm a Bible dude. I want you to read the Bible so I can tell you about Jesus and teach you about the... Well, if you can't read and understand what a sentence says, how can you... You know, they have successfully neutralized people. Again, what's the most dangerous person in the world? Someone who can read and think for themselves. What do I tell you all the time? Don't believe me, right? Ad fontes, back to the fact. Read it yourself. Don't believe me. Don't believe anything you see on TV. Don't believe anything. No podcast. Don't believe. Look it up for yourself and read it. Is this guy a lying skunk or not? Well, then read it up. Look at it. Read about Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Don't believe me, right? So it's very important, right? And you don't have to have a college degree for that. You know, just check it out for yourself, right? Okay. Okay. So let's take a little look at the Constitution. So again, the point is. John Calvin, Total Depravity of Man. Who grows up in a Puritan home? Puritans are Calvinist people from England. John Locke. So John Locke is a secular person, okay, but he grew up in the environment of John Calvin. So Locke has a Total Depravity of Man like burned into his brain. Okay, very important. Okay.
I'm sorry. How did Luther view Calvin's
Luther comes
assessment?
first. The second generation is John Calvin. So Luther was fighting other fights. He was fighting with the medieval Roman Catholic Church, and you know, and Luther would believe, and he agrees with both Luther and Calvin are students of Saint Augustine, right? So they agree with each other for maybe 95% of everything.
Okay.
Right? Except Calvin hits it harder because his problem are the monarchies, and you know, so he's trying to go after the idea of why a republic. So our Constitution is the fruit or the product of John Calvin to John Locke, then John Witherspoon, and who is he? They went to the Log College, which is Princeton University now, along with James Madison. So James Madison and John Witherspoon were trained in the Calvinist tradition. So James Madison believes in the total depravity of man. Okay? And the other big influence is this book. This is called The Spirit of the Laws by Montesquieu. Okay? So who read this book? Everybody read this book. So the founders of our country read Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, 1776, and they read Montesquieu. This is like the theoretical foundation for the Constitution. So, why do we have three branches of government? Checks and balances, right here. So, if you get rid of you say, we don't want a king anymore, okay, you're going to have a republic, you have to have a system that checks and balances the excesses of people, right? So, the idea of James Madison, right? Thomas Jefferson, they read Spirit of the Laws by Montesquieu. This is like the I don't know, like the intellectual foundation behind our Constitution. Okay, very important book. Okay, so let's do a little bit here before we run out of time. Sorry, the computer is still restarting.
No.
Yeah.
Wow, gotta be shot.
All right. Okay, so first of all, let me back up a little bit. What document comes first? The Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. Read it. What is it? It's a grievance list against George III. Okay? All the abuses that he did. Okay? And so then we have the Articles of Confederation, okay, that were ratified or proposed during the Revolutionary War, but finally ratified when the war ended. The Articles of Confederation doesn't work, and I'll do a whole lecture on that sometime if you want. Each state had one vote in the Congress. Is that a good idea? Rhode Island and New York have one vote, each have one vote. That doesn't work. And you need 9 out of 13 states in order to amend or add or write a new law. 9 out of 13? You get 3 people together and you can't get them to agree on anything. So basically, and there's no executive, there's no president, there's no court system, right? So the Articles of Confederation, they got together in Philadelphia, where? Philadelphia, Independence Hall, where they did the Declaration of Independence, same building, and they were going to have a convention to amend the Articles of Confederation. So they go in, they close the door, they lock the door, it's a secret thing. Articles of Confederation are run through the shredder. They didn't have shredders then, but they just started from scratch, right? So it's an all new Constitution. And they used deception in order to get it done. And who are one of the people that were big advocates of the new Constitution? Alexander Hamilton, okay? Why Alexander Hamilton? He comes from Nevis, which is a Caribbean island. He comes to New York, goes to King's College, which is Columbia University. He's like a genius kid, right? When the Revolutionary War breaks out, he gets himself assigned to George Washington's staff, and he's very brave and courageous. At the Battle of Yorktown, he actually storms the British parapets and takes one of their positions. So he's not like a phony, right? And he also suffered through Valley Forge, what's wrong with that? George Washington is camped outside of Philadelphia in Valley Forge, and the Congress didn't send money for them. So they didn't have any food, no tents, no shoes, no boots, no uniforms. They're dying and freezing out there, and the Congress didn't do anything to help them. And Hamilton never forgot that. And he said, if we're going to have a nation, we have to have some way of collecting taxes and supporting a military if we need a military. So that's his thing. He wants to have a strong central government in order to have a military that can do the functions it's supposed to do. Remember, police, military, and contracts? Okay? So Hamilton is one of the movers and shakers here. Hamilton stands up and he wants to have a monarch. That's his first proposal. And what happened to that idea?
Got shot down.
Yeah, it got shot down, right? Why? Because Hamilton is thinking in terms of England and European models. There's never been a republic, not since the days of the ancient Greeks. So this idea is truly a radical idea. Nobody thought it would work. You know, they thought the thing would maybe last 10 years and fall apart or something. But, you know, we kept it together all these years. We still use this today. And should we throw it out and rewrite the Constitution? There are some people that have a proposal where we need to have a constitutional convention to like limit federal spending or, you know, balance budget or something. No, because if you have a constitutional convention, who's going to be the representatives from New York?
Right. Enough said.
It'll be Chuck Schumer, de Blasio will be there, Hillary Clinton will probably be our representatives, maybe Anthony Weiner will be there. So they're going to represent my interest at the Constitutional Convention. So people are afraid of a runaway convention. Well, they'll just say, let's just lock the doors and throw this away, and they're going to come out with a parliamentary system, which is what they want, because they want democracy.
But if they form another convention, the whole Constitution is on the table.
That's right. That's right.
They can't pick and choose. It's all sitting there.
So the idea of just adding one amendment is not, no. What do they call it? A convention of the states. Yeah. So that's a bad idea. All right. So we'll just do the opening paragraph here. We the people. Okay, stop. What's this for? We the people. Okay, of the United States. Okay, so who actually wrote the Constitution? Well, like an elite group of people got together and wrote it. Okay, why? Did everybody have the right to vote back in 1883 or 1783? No, it's called Whig democracy, meaning you have to own property in order to have the right to vote. Think of a condominium, okay? You live in a condominium association gets together, and you get one vote. So the condominium doesn't give the right to vote to the housing project next door. See what I mean? Only the members of the condominium project get a chance to vote. So that's what they're thinking. So people that don't pay taxes or own property should not have the right to vote. And who else couldn't vote? You had to be 21 years old, a male, 21 years and older to vote. Okay? So women can't vote, slaves can't vote, most people couldn't vote. So to be 21 and older and to have to own property and then pay taxes, that's maybe like, I don't know, maybe 20% of the population. That might even be a high number. Okay? Yeah, but don't we believe in no taxation without representation? Well, they would say the people that have the right to vote are protecting and watching out for your interests even if you don't have a right to vote. That would be their argument, right? And over time, what have we done? We've expanded the franchise, so now anybody with a pulse, even if you're dead, you get to vote. You know? I was talking to a guy, his father's in a nursing home, and he moved from assisted living, so he got four ballots in the mail. Because he moved from one address to another address, so he got 4 ballots in the mail. So the idea of everybody should vote, everybody vote, well, that's not what the founders had in mind, right? Basically, if you receive benefits, you shouldn't have the right to vote, right? Okay. We the people of the United States. Okay, stop. What is it called? The United States. Okay? United, what? States, united, okay? So the idea of it's a union. Okay? So they're going to have to settle this during the Civil War, where they thought that states have a right to secede from the Union. No. You're in the Union, and it's United States. It's not New York does whatever it wants. You can declare sanctuary cities or whatever, and you know, no. You have to be subject to federal law. So you can't like declare your city an anarchist zone, right? Why can't I do that? I'm going to declare this area, Wurtemberg, an anarchist zone, and we don't respect or go by Dutchess County law, state of New York law, or federal law. It's going to be like an anarchist utopia here. Well, you can't do that, right? We the people, in order to do what? Form a more perfect union. Okay, so the goal of the Constitution is to have a union that functions. Okay, establish justice. Okay, what is that? 3 legitimate functions of the state are what? Police, military, and what? A court system. Establish justice. Right. Ensure domestic tranquility. What, is that a good idea? Yeah, do you want to go to Home Depot and burn it down and shoot the manager to get your 2x4s? No, we want domestic tranquility. Peace is what we want. Provide for a common defense. Okay, why is that important? We're lucky that we won the American Revolution because we had a Continental Army that was underfunded and bad uniforms, no ammunition, and we had state militias. What do state militias do when the British regular troops come marching across the field in their red uniforms and big high fur hats and the Brown Bess rifles? What do? They run away, right? So militia are not, you can't defend the country with militia units. Doesn't work, okay? So they want to have a common defense. And to promote the general welfare. What does welfare mean?
Well-being.
Well-being.
Yeah, it doesn't mean welfare check.
No.
Where did that come from? That's the fruit of the New Deal language, shape-shifting language people, right? Most Americans thought it was a shame and humiliation to be on the dole, right? Or to go to the county poorhouse. So instead they called it welfare, faring well. So it doesn't mean getting a check from the government, right? That's a euphemism. These politicians, you know, it means faring well. We want to fare well. We want to do well, right? That's the goal here, right? And secure the blessings of liberty. What's the opposite of liberty? Tyranny. Okay, so we just got rid of King George, tyrant. According to the Declaration of Independence, he did all that stuff to us. We want liberty. And the goal of the Constitution is to promote these things. That's why it's in the first paragraph, right? We want union, justice, tranquility, a common defense, and general welfare, and the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. What's posterity?
Future.
Well, not just that, it's your children and your grandchildren, right? So, I mean, isn't that interesting? You know? So, why do you want to follow current events? I don't, it's so depressing, and no, you need to follow current events, not for you, but for your children and grandchildren's sake. If you think that the blessings of this country's been good to you, well, guess what? You want to hand that on to your children, don't you? Very, very important. This is why we ordain and establish this Constitution of the what? United States of America. Right? Not 13 unorganized colonies. Okay? So again, so the first paragraph, very important to read the preamble. And we'll probably end there, right? Okay. Any quick questions? Pretty interesting stuff. And it's rooted, don't forget, it's rooted in the Bible and St. Augustine, John Calvin, John Locke, Jefferson, right? So that's the lineage of our Constitution.
It's great.